They were going double duty on both. But
Yeah, it's the town sizes and it's just, you're all in one room with all these other people.
Everyone,
Yeah.
I think Mayor Holmberg is trying to call meeting to order.
Oh, put them on mute.
Yeah. All right. Well, good evening, everybody. I appreciate the technology fix. I will share with the group that my granddaughter spent the weekend with us and she was sick yesterday and did in fact test positive for strep and COVID. So I thought today I would just avoid, at least today, avoid crowds. So I appreciate the grace we'll have doing this meeting a little digital. So I would like to call it to order, please. And do a roll call.
Brooks,
Here.
Kushner, Lund,
Here.
Bentley,
here,
Holmberg.
Here. Would like to go for adoption agenda.
Move to adopt.
Brooks,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Bentley,
yes.
Holmberg.
Yes. So item number 4 on the work session here, presentation for one public safety budget discussion. So Danielle, whoever's up.
Did you guys arm wrestle over who was gonna present first?
No, Randy told me I was first. I think it was the.
Okay.
Just told us.
So, Chief Rich Lockhart will present the police department's budget first.
You don't want to see a couple of old guys arm wrestling, I don't think.
Yeah.
All right, we on here, Randy? You hear me, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, I can, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk to you about the police department budget. So we're on here. Technology here.
I can hear, but you can't see. That's what it looks like.
I cannot see, the remote's not working. You just want to click me, Randy? Yeah, I got you. All right, do one more there. There we go. All right. So I'll give you a little highlights from our FY21 budget. That's the one we're operating in now. 2.9 million is the amount. 243,000, or about 8%, is what I would consider our discretionary budget. That's the things that aren't related to personnel costs, which are about 88% of our budget. And utilities, about $102,000, or 4% of our budget. Just to give you an idea, our electric bill is $45,000 a year. The dads in the crowd will realize that that's an expensive one. It comes out to about $3,750 a month. So I do a lot of talk around the police department about shutting off lights. And they love me because I'll turn off lights on in the jail area and they'll tell me, hey, someone's in here. Couldn't see him, so the light went out. Our largest category is clothing. We spend about $35,400 a year on clothing. Each new officer costs about $2,500 to outfit. Labor is another big one for us. It includes our building cleaning, waxing floors, cleaning the jail area. So each year we power scrub that because we have a lot of people in there that aren't the most hygienic. So we have to make sure that we keep all the viruses and dirt and all that stuff out of there. We also get folks sometimes who expectorate in there. So, you know, that kind of stuff is just not good. Training and travel, about $20,000 a year. Each officer has to have so many hours of post-training each year to keep up their certification. So that's where that comes from. Vehicle maintenance is a really big one for us, and I'll highlight this one a little bit later. We are projected to be over budget this year by almost $10,000 in vehicle maintenance, and I'll explain that to you. The last thing is services non-categorized. Patrol video storage is $29,000 a year. I don't know if you guys remember, some of you were not on the council when we got the in-car cameras and body cameras. So you can be proud that your police department is ahead of many others around the country, but storing all of that video costs money. We store all of it in the cloud. We debated when we did that project whether or not to do it on a server here. And given that we have an IT staff of 2, Gary was excited to have it stored in the cloud. And so this is one of those efficiencies where it would be cheaper to do it here, but it's more work for them. And so keeping it there is something that's really an efficiency that we think is really important. The other thing too is it's backed up with lots of redundant servers and all that stuff, so we don't have to worry about that. Yes, sir.
When we first talked about that, we had asked how long we were going to keep that footage on if it's not used in an investigation,
Right.
how long we're going to keep it on file. And at the time, I think we hadn't developed a policy on that yet, or there hadn't been established a good industry standard or protocol that was widely accepted. Has that developed? I mean, this is still a relatively new, portion area of policing. So
Yeah, so what we found, the Secretary of State has a records retention policy that we follow. Outside of that, we can set up whatever we want for retention periods. If it's what we call a non-relevant video, so say I want to call for service, there's not an arrest made, there's nothing really significant about it, we categorize that as a non-relevant video. Those are all taken off the server after 30 days. And then others, depending upon the statute of limitations for the crime. So like a DUI, we'll keep those for 3 years. For something like a traffic stop, it's a year. If we have like a murder or something, a serious crime, we're going to keep that footage indefinitely. And so when the officers get done recording on their body camera, they can categorize it there. There's 4 options for a category there. When they get back to their desktop, and they can reassign those categories if they've got a different one. So I think we've got about 8 or 10 different categories, and that locks into the retention period for the video.
Okay.
We are paying for unlimited, so we actually use this to store surveillance videos that we get from convenience stores. We'll use it to store other media as well, and that way we keep it off the city servers. And again, it's protected because it's out there in the cloud. You know how the cloud is, and it's very safe. It's got all these protective measures and backups built into it, so we feel really good about that. For this year, we received a grant that pays for half the cost of bulletproof vests. Those run about $1,200 or $1,300. So we get $650 back from the Department of Justice Bulletproof Vest Partnership. And it's a super easy program. As soon as we get a vest, I upload a receipt, and then they send us money for half the cost of the vest. That's really important because, as you all know, we're behind on officers, so hiring them will mean we're going to have to buy more vests. They're custom fitted for each officer, and they last about 5 years. So we, right now, with our new officers, it takes about 6 to 8 weeks to get one in. We can get one that will get them through that until their custom fit one comes in, and then we'll put them in a custom fitted one. We also received a grant this year that paid for half the cost of 17 ballistic helmets that saved the department about $7,500. That was through Hero Fund USA. They made a presentation at one of the council meetings last fall, and we've completed that. We now have new helmets on all of the officers. They're a much improved version than what we had. What we had was an old Army helmet that basically had webbing inside of it, so you had to kind of figure out the right size. These were all military surplus, so we didn't have the right sizes for everybody. And if you're a female officer and you've got hair in a bun, it's very difficult for that Army helmet to fit on there. So these new ones are custom fitted. By each person, they got a dial, so you can dial it in. So it's basically a one-size-fit-all helmet, but it fits better on your head because of that customization. The other thing it does is it offers better ballistic protection. We've got a mid-cut on the ears so that you have protection that comes down below your ear a little bit, so it provides more protection for them there. It also replaced the motorcycle helmets we had for crowd control or riot situations. So we have an impact-resistant face shield that can be taken on or off the helmet, and then that also provides them impact protection from projectiles if they're in a crowd control situation. The other thing we did this year, we expanded Shop with a Cop and work now with the Sheriff's Office, non-master PD. We took 50+ kids shopping this last year. We weren't sure we were going to be able to do that because of COVID. This was early December, so we really struggled with it, but we came up with a good protocol. We gathered in the garden center so we could be outside, and took them one at a time through the store. We were there by 8 o'clock at night, so the store wasn't really busy. And so those kids still got to have a nice Christmas. And that's one of our really, really fun things that we do. I wanted to show this to you for comparison. A lot of people talk about, and this will be true probably, I'm sure if you ask Marcel, throughout the entire city's budget. So looking back 5 years ago, the police department budget was $2.8 million. We're right now at about 2.9, so a 4% increase over 5 years. Our personnel expenses 5 years ago were about 2.3 million, or about 83% of the budget. Those are up about to 88% now. So you can see those expenses have gone up. Clothing, we went from 15 to 34,000. Again, things are getting more expenses. Services were at 3,500 5 years ago. They're now 39,000, mostly due to that patrol video. That's part of the budget. CALIA expenses, we're going through that accreditation process. Again, a very important program. Those are $15,000 each year. Those are for travel, going to conferences. Those are for certification costs and those kinds of things. The other thing that I wanted to point out too is that costs are going up. So if you think about 5 years ago, how much something cost to paint or a house or things like that, they've gone up more than 4% over the last 5 years. I'll give you an example from last year to this year. Rubber gloves that we bought last February for $78 a case are now $198 a case. The difference here is that I can't just raise my costs of providing service like private businesses can. So we are struggling to do more with less, and that's starting to have an impact on some of the things that we're able to do. The next thing that's really interesting is demographic data. This doesn't have much
Hey,
to do
Chief.
with the, yes.
Excuse me, I was trying to take some notes and I missed
Okay.
when you said staff cost. I got the 88%, but 5 years ago, how much of the budget was to salary and payroll?
83%.
Yeah, what dollar number? Do you have that?
2.339350.
Okay, and then today?
2,562,760. That's
Okay.
88%.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I wanted to
You're
get
welcome.
clarity of where you were at.
Yeah. Demographic data. So I wanted to look at the age of our department because it's one of the things that is concerning to me as a law enforcement leader is how young are the people we have out there. So in 2018, our average age was 37. Our average tenure or time on the department was 9 years. In 2019, we went to 38 as an average age and 9.5 years for average tenure. Last year, where we started to see some of the retirements of long-serving employees, it went down to 35 as an average age and 8 years for the average tenure. And then this year, we're down to 33 and 7 years as your average tenure. We just sworn a new police officer today. Amanda Brendel is her name. She is 21 years old. So she is, and just turned not too long ago. Good kid, and but very young. If you look at just the patrol division, and these are the ones that are answering your 911 calls when you call for the police. The average age there is 30, and your average tenure is 5 years. If we take out Sergeant Carroll, who has 36 years of service and is 61 years old, the average age drops to 28, and the average time on is 3 years. So when you look at that, if you are familiar with policing, you barely get to understand the job in 3 years. And if you think back to when you were 28, you didn't know as much as you do now. And so when we're talking about the decisions that young people are making in the middle of the night to keep our city safe, it's concerning to see that we have that little bit of experience and that those young people doing that. This is one that we're actually really proud of. The average percentage of female officers in police departments around the country is 12.6%. So if you see our officers there, we've always had a high percentage of female officers. In 2018, we were 81% male, 19% female. We had 36 officers. That was the last time that we were fully staffed. We're authorized for 36. That was also the last time we were the highest paid department in Johnson County. In 2019, we were 79% male, 21% female, and we were down to 33 officers. In the last 2 years, we've been the same percentage on female officers, but only 28 total officers. And so one of the things that we'll be looking at for next year is changing that pay scale so we can become more competitive. The state of the fleet, I want to give you an idea. These are the vehicles in our patrol fleet. So we have a patrol fleet, we have a detective and admin fleet. The average mileage is about 68,000 miles. The average year of the car is 2016. Our newest vehicle is a 2020 Ford Explorer. The oldest vehicle is a 2014 Ford Taurus. The lowest mileage is 18,706. That's one of our new vehicles. And the highest mileage is 112,599. So you look at that and you think, oh, that's not too bad, really, because I'm probably driving a car with more than 68,000 miles. It's probably not as new as a 2016. But you have to remember the way these vehicles are driven. When you go on an emergency run, you have lights and sirens on, and you're going from 0 to 60 or something along that line many times throughout that call. So we put brakes on cars about every 10,000 miles. We change our oil about every 3,000 miles because that's how hard they're driven. And when you're stopping and starting that much, so we have to stop at stop signs and red lights, it puts a lot of pressure on your transmission because you're shifting a lot. These cars with overdrive, they are bouncing back and forth and in and out of overdrive when they can. And so it's really rough on them. And so that's where we see a lot of the problems. The other issue here is most of these cars are now all-wheel drive or front-wheel drive. When we had the old Crown Vics, they had a rear-wheel drive axle. That's a really sturdy design. And so you could pretty much do anything you wanted to those. We're starting to see problems now with the transaxles on the front-wheel drives and the all-wheel drive cars, and those are pretty expensive to replace. Here's our vehicle maintenance costs. You can see an interesting correlation here. In the years that we bought new vehicles, the costs actually were lower than they are in years when we didn't. So in 2017, we spent about 19,000 and change a year. We bought 2 new vehicles. In 2018, we didn't buy any, and we spent close to $27,000. 2019, again, we didn't buy any vehicles. We spent $33,000. And last year we bought 2, or we bought these actually in 2019. So in 2020, we had the 2 new vehicles and only spent $16,000. Some of that skewed a little bit because we didn't do as much driving last year as we normally do. And then this year we didn't buy any vehicles again, and we're expected to spend probably close to $34,000 in vehicle maintenance. We've done a lot with what we have. So like the school resource officers, they drive the vehicles to the school and they don't drive them around as much. So some of our older vehicles are there. So you see the old Tauruses is what most of them are being driven by the school resource officers. That helps save some of the mileage on, helps keep the maintenance costs down. The problem is I just hired a 6'7", almost 400-pound school resource officer. So he can't fit in a Ford Taurus. And he was driving, we gave him a Charger, and I picked him up at the repair shop and watched him get into the passenger seat of my Charger. And we had to put him in an Explorer. So, I mean, it's just there's not enough of room in that seat for a man that size to fit. So again, we've done some of those things to try and minimize that. And so it's doing what we can to help make sure that our fleet lasts as long as it can. Here's the number of vehicles with each year. So you can see 2015s are the majority of the fleet. 2016, there's 3 of those. The 2016s are both Dodge Chargers. And when we bought those, we bought them with these fancy screens in the middle, and the screens are going out. So a lot of things we did then we learned from. We won't be doing those again. We're actually going to be going to all Explorers for our patrol fleet. We're looking at Dodge Durangos, possibly as an alternative. We didn't hear a lot of good things about them last year or 2 years ago when we bought the Explorers, so we didn't buy them then. The cost now for a new vehicle is about $37,000. That's just the vehicle. You don't have any equipment with that. 5 years ago, that vehicle cost $27,000. That's for a Ford Explorer with an EcoBoost engine in it. The Durango runs about $33,000. But again, when we bought the Explorers, we didn't do the Durangos because we had heard some issues about them with maintenance and upkeep. We looked at the Chargers, and we actually ordered Chargers. Chargers run about $25,000, so they're significantly less. But the Dodge canceled all the production in 2019 because they were doing a changeover, and they cut short the production run. So we ended up getting 2 Ford Explorers, and we really were lucky to get them. And that was the last time we bought vehicles. So I don't know what they're going to be up to. My guess is they're probably going to be getting close to $40,000 if you can even get them right now with the chip shortage. Upfitting costs about $13,000. That includes lights, radio, repeater, which is something that boosts the signal in the car radio. And believe it or not, as small as Warrensburg is, you'd think that you could get pretty good radio reception. But we've got a lot of in-building coverage, and the topography here really isn't ideal for radio reception. So we're starting to put repeaters in the vehicles to make sure we get good radio reception. The in-car camera, the computer equipment, prisoner transport equipment, striping package. We've gone down to a pretty minimalist striping package. For the newer cars that have just Warrensburg and then police on the side are what we're doing. That's about a $500 package. So it's about half what we were paying for the ones when we made the window or the doors white and the vehicles black. These are the costs I pointed out earlier, is up about $10,000, mostly due to vehicle costs. We do not have any vehicles in the FY22 budget at this time. We're still several million or about $1 million or something over what we need to be. Marcella said that we may have some money left in this year's budget to look at maybe buying a car or 2. But again, that's something that we'll just have to see where we are. Here's our FY22 budget items. The first thing is the reorganization of the police department. What we want to do is add a lieutenant to the night shift. This will provide for additional supervision. You saw the demographics with our younger department on nights, especially is where a lot of our younger people are. It's important to have that supervision on scene as soon as possible. If you look at the research that has been done with excessive force or hostage situations or situations that where people are rushing in, we're trying to slow things down. That's sort of the philosophy that we're trying to adopt. When you have more seasoned and tenured people on scene sooner, you reduce the likelihood that a suspect's going to get hurt, that an officer's going to get hurt, or that an innocent person may get hurt. So having that lieutenant there on the night shift would provide not only a smaller span of control for the patrol division, we would have now 2 sergeants reporting to the lieutenant, but it also provides that command leadership on a night shift that will help us if we have a major incident. Electronic ticketing is another thing we have in there. This is a much improved efficiency. Right now, they still write out paper tickets. I'm sure that none of you are familiar with those, but they fill those out. The one thing I get complaints from the prosecutor all the time is the officers don't sign their name legibly on the thing. So I don't know if police officers and doctors go to the same school, but you can't read their writing. With this, it will, you just basically take the license, scan the license, it enters all the data from your license into the ticketing machine. So your name, your address, date of birth, all that stuff's in there. The officer would then just have to ask for any updated information. So if you move, they can change that. The other thing it does is it has drop-down menus for the ordinance violation, and then it automatically populates the narrative in there. So all of that's legible. At the end of the encounter, you hit print, it prints out a ticket that the person can take with them. That data is then transferred electronically into our records management system and transferred over to courts. So you have less room for error, less room for lost tickets. And then lastly, the one thing it'll do is it will collect the racial traffic stop data that we have to collect and report to the Attorney General every year. Right now, we're collecting that on a paper form. It's just the most basic way. It's the easiest way to do it. But it's one more thing the officer has to do at the end of that traffic stop. And then that gets turned into a clerk who then inputs all that data into an Excel spreadsheet. And so this electronic ticketing will eliminate all of that, and it will be automatically dumped into a system that we can pull out a CSV file to just upload into the spreadsheet and send to the Attorney General. Last thing is a part-time fingerprint technician. We do all the printing for Identigo, which is a statewide program that does pre-employment fingerprinting for not only our city, but also for the schools, for the university. And so we get a lot of traffic through there. We get $3 a fingerprint right now for all of them that we do. And the problem is the record staff has to do those in addition to their regular duties. So we've negotiated with Identigo to get $5 a fingerprint. And then we've calculated out that if we do the same number of prints we're doing now, we would be able to be revenue neutral with a part-time person who would come in and do fingerprints for us. So we're hoping to have that one go through as well. That will again provide more efficiency for our upfront operation. This is a really good program. I like it because it gives us a chance to interact with our community in a way that's not stressful for them, and they get to see us at a time, and it creates a positive encounter with our staff. Increasing the clothing budget. One of the things we started doing this year, we had our first 2 academy police trainees graduate from the academy. They started their field training last week. We've got to build in about $7,000 for each one to go through. That's the academy tuition and expenses, and then the increased cost for uniforms. So we've increased our clothing budget for next year. The other thing I know Greg's been working on is increasing entry-level salary. Again, we're the lowest paid department in the county, and really in the area, we're now $1.50 an hour behind the Johnson County Sheriff's Office. So when I'm out there trying to compete for new applicants, I've got to try and explain why they should come work here for $1.50 an hour less, and they can go out to Centerview and work for the Sheriff's Office. And then the other thing we've talked about is a hiring incentive. So a lot of departments are using a sign-on bonus, for lack of a better term, to encourage experienced officers to come in. And when you look at our demographic data, that's really the area we need to focus our efforts on. We're doing pretty good on the new people. We've got 3 people slated to go to the academy that starts next week. I mean, that's great, but they're all young and inexperienced. So we need to try and figure out a way to get some of those more experienced people. And we believe the hiring incentive and and fixing the officer salary range will help with that. The last thing we have in here is a computer replacement. Gary's been working super hard on this. And we're going to replace all of the in-car cameras and connection devices with the laptops. So if you see the highway patrolmen coming in and out of the station, they're carrying their computer with them. That's their desktop computer and their in-car computer. We're going to be going to something like that. So it will travel with that officer throughout their time here. It will help us in a number of ways, but the biggest one that I'm most excited about is replacing the connection devices so that we will be able to live stream our in-car video. With the Cradle Point connection that we're planning on putting in there, we'll be able to log onto the video system and we can watch officers go into a scene. So if we had something major happen, we could position an officer's car in front of that scene and we could live stream that back to a command center and be able to make decisions about what's going on based on what we're seeing from the scene itself. Can't live stream body camera video, but the in-car will be really helpful to have. The other thing it will do for us is if you ever see Gary crawling in and out of the trunk of a Ford Taurus trying to fix a computer, it will save him from having to do that. It's kind of like watching Lane Fisher getting out of a Charger. It's not fun for Gary. I'm sure wherever he is, he will vouch for me on that one. So that's the other big thing. Questions? Thanks so much for giving me the opportunity to talk with you about our budget. Appreciate it.
Chief, so I apologize. I do have one. So the number of officer slots has remained consistent, but pay is not keeping up with comparable area in the area like Sheriff's Department. Is that true? Or
Yes,
correct?
that is true. Yeah. So in 2018, we were the highest paid department. And when we did our salary study, and then they all took our salary study and changed their salary.
Right. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
So I'm sorry. real quick.
No, go ahead.
Are we $1.50 less than Johnson County Sheriff's Department?
Yes.
What about the other surrounding cities? Are we?
Yeah, we're lower than all of them. We're about 50 cents behind UCM. We're $3 an hour behind Sedalia. And Higginsville, we're about, I think it's $2 an hour behind them.
And have you done any further than those areas?
I think Greg has. He's got a group that he looks at through the Mid-America Regional Council, and it's confirmed for him that we're pretty much the bottom.
Okay.
So we will be having a conversation, continuing our budget talks. So on July 26th, we'll dive into the ranges, what we're seeing with public safety and what our comparable cities are as well.
Okay.
So we'll be able to provide you more information on July 26th.
Perfect. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, this is my first time. Mayor, where you are. Council, I'd like to thank you if you can go ahead and click for it. I think it's gonna work. Let's see. Oh, there it is. Thanks, man. This is our fire budget. We kind of named it yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Yesterday's budget, we almost cut our operational budget in half for the 19 and 20 budget year. We kept going 24/7, 365. We had some retirements then. We had people leaving, going to other departments at that time. Our overtime budget was a lot, still is. This is our run survey for 2019. If you look at what we've done, we had 1,381 calls, 855 are the fires, and 496 are EMS. We're a little different than most of the other departments out there. We do not run on every EMS call. We triage our calls so that we don't have to take that time to run a call that we don't need to actually be there for. The big thing there in 2019 is we had 218 overlapping calls. That means we had both stations out at the same time. We were busy. And the average call time right around then was around 26 minutes per incident. So there was a time there that most of our guys did, hey, we can get by with this, we'll shake loose and go to the next call. So our guys do really well at doing that. 2020, we had the COVID dip. We dropped to 989 calls For that year, 113 were overlapping. So that shows you there, and that's January to December, folks, instead of throughout the budget year. As you look now, this is the current year to July or June 23rd. We're at 504 calls. We're on track again for the 1,200 calls this year. 43 calls have overlapped. Our on-scene time now is 23 minutes. We've been trying to speed up the time a little bit, trying to get our guys going. This is our response time.
Is like June or sorry, July or August, like fire season for you guys? Like, is there a time of year where, because that's busier than others?
There used to when the college was out, it was a little less busy. Actually, it's just busy all the time now. It's as far as fire season, typically we look for our first structure fire at that first really cold day, and then the first really hot day when the air conditioners come on and people didn't get them serviced and things like that. So that's typically those 2 weeks of the year is usually our busiest 2 weeks. Sets up around the weather. Our average response time, this I'm really proud of, guys. Our department gets out there and gets, we from the time we get our dispatch till we arrive on your scene, we're, as you can see, under 4.5 minutes for 3 years. Our turnout time, that's how fast the guys, when the alarm goes off in the station and the truck's moving out the door. That's our average time on those calls. And we're well within our times on that. Training hours, that's what we kind of look at. What we do is in training hours, we have 7,000 hours in 2019. And as you can see, we hired a training officer at a year ago, and we're on track for about 12,000 hours this year of training. So that has really helped us along. Out of those 12,000 hours, hopefully, we also are doing our own Fire 1 and 2 class. We're building our own firefighters. We're a class of 12 right now. 10 of those are either with us or with the district, and the other 2 are from neighboring departments that we're teaching. This, I just kind of put this in there for you. I thought it was pretty interesting. Our department, the Department of Warrensburg, covers 61,000 hours a year, give or take. That's how many hours a year we're paying for people to be at the stations. That's 7 guys a year, or suppression only. Our operations is what that is. What our budget allowed in 2019 and 2020? Well, we cut it in half. It allowed us to have furloughs. Most of our training we did in-house. We did it by ourselves, and we repaired a lot of our own equipment. People got good at fixing stuff. I'd say we're great at it, but we got better at it. One of the big things that really came out of here, we overhauled our student residency program. That's where a college student can come to college, or any college, and as long as they're considered a full-time student in their catalog, they can be staffed at Station 2, running that residency program. When you go out there, you kind of talk to some of those. And that's staffed up to a full 6. That's the first time in years that we've had that opportunity to go to full 6. Looks like we're going to try to keep that this year again. Some of the other stuff we got to do with our budget in 2019, 2020 is in capital, we added a new roof to Station 2 on the living quarters. Half of the station got re-roofed. So that was good. Half the station, the concrete got sealed, the brick outside. When I was working with Chief Kushner, that only happened 10 years ago. Well, we got to digging around in our records and found out 17 years ago that station was sealed. So our individuals kind of took it upon themselves, and we purchased sealer and started sealing the station to keep is actually leaking through the brick into the stations. Also at that time, we had some extra money on a capital outlay. We took our patio away that was tilted towards the building and had it torn out and tilted it away from the building, so we quit having water puddles inside our pay room. Also, we changed doors that have been here since 1973 on the door that on our west side of Station 1, which you could just about push your way through it, and then our interior door in between our bays and living quarters of Station 1. What we did with the 2021 budget, well, we did a lot. We organized our training props, getting ready for the class. We knew we was going to start doing our own classes. We got propane tanks donated to us, propane donated to us. We got our dumpsters, all the props that we needed to make our internationally certified class a viable thing. Some of our individuals really did a great job. You guys seen some of it when we was out there. So that went really well for us. Yeah, we also got a light pole cylinder donated. I think the concrete pillar that puts in the ground, that was donated to us. And KCP&L came over, or Evergy came over and set it for us. So we got a lot of things done. Connex trailer was moved, concrete pad was poured. The Connex trailer is now beautiful blue. And we're still going. Also in 2021, we received a respiratory protection grant from FEMA. It's the tune of about $15,000. We're finishing that grant up currently. That is the equipment to deal with pandemic and whatever's coming this fall. So that was what else we did. We also, the SCBA compressor grant, you guys worked on that last council meeting. That's the equivalent of about a $70,000 grant for us and replaces our compressor of 1995. There's some donations made by individuals out there. It really assisted us. We figured we had about, according to the people who donated, about $13,000 worth of donations just for our Fire 1 and 2 program to keep it up and running and make it more viable and easier for our firefighters to deal with. Last weekend, we did have a international certification burn. So far, everyone passed. Did have a few people have some heat problems, but we worked through that and got all 12 of our individuals through. Also, with the CARES Act, Chief Wilson, he wrote a grant for $17,000 and some change for a fit tester. That's the thing that goes on your face. It tells you whether that mask fits you right or not. And this one, when we purchased this one, it also will fit test N95 masks. We were doing, at the beginning of the COVID thing, we were doing quite a bit of fit testing for other departments and agencies throughout Warrensburg. So that became a very popular thing. So the CARES Act, we received that. Well, here we are at the 2022 budget, 21-22. Some equipment we're needing is fire hoses, appliances, nozzles, hose testing machine. Currently, we use our engines for hose testing machines. It would take a little wear off of them if we purchased a machine, and that way we wouldn't have to run that. Because each one of those, each time we test a hose, it runs it up to 300 PSI for 5 minutes and has to hold it. It's a burst test. Total of that, we're asking for 45,000, some change. Communications needs, as Chief Lockhart says, we don't talk very far on our radios. I know that we are currently working with dispatch to see what the next generation will be for public safety. Right now, I have more dead radios than I have working radios. So Chief Jennings has done a great job keeping them going. This is the number he gave me, and that is for mobiles in vehicle and on person, or walkie-talkies, more or less. Some training needs. Out of our last 2 budgets, we cut our training to $3,300. We're asking for that money back. Contract training, that's all the schools that we send our instructors to so that we can teach and stay on what's going on current in the business. We're asking for 11,000 and some change there. Travel for all that's about 7,000. Equipment needs about 11,000. That's for props that we don't have or that we made and destroyed them. And someone who can weld better than us can build a prop together, and we're looking for that for that. Our fire program is $6,500 is what we're looking for to keep that program up and running. Typically, that program, if we have enough outside guests, firefighters who attend that program, we do charge a tuition. A lot of times it's a zero base, or if it even might make a little money for us to run that program, depending on how many outside agencies we have. Staffing needs, it's the same. It's the same thing at the fire department as the police department. It's not a big secret. We do have staffing problems. Currently, our staffing issue runs just like Chief Locker, is that middle group. I'm looking at my operators and those 5 to 10 year people, I have one of. So that makes it kind of tough. What we're asking for is 6 more people. That's a pretty big chunk to bite off on. I do realize that. But that way we can keep more people trained. Currently, I'm having, yesterday, I had a battalion chief driving a truck for us because that's all we had left, paying him overtime for that. So it is what it is. This is our capital needs we're asking for this year.
Hey, Chief,
Yeah, sir.
question for you. So I know that on the police department, some of the issue with staffing is in addition to pay potential, but current public, what's causing some of the fire fighters that tenure issue and stuff? What's causing, do you have enough applicants? Is it, or what's up?
We actually, at the start of the pandemic, we shut down hiring. So that really hurt us. It takes about a year to catch back up on that. We're starting to get some applicants now. Greg and I just received, I think, 2 this week. Or
We received 4 applications
Yeah.
since the last council report.
Yeah.
Full time.
So they're starting to come in, but most of it is my 25 to 35-year-old people are getting their paramedic licenses and moving to the city. They're starting up there for about what my specialist in my mid-range, my specialist is, which takes you about 4 years to get to here. And their steps are a lot quicker. So it's money, the sum of it. That's been the last couple. And we had to go outside of the Johnson County area to hire people, to get applicants. A couple of years ago, we started doing that. So a lot of these applicants are coming from the city. They're new, they can't get on in other departments. We bring them in, we train them up for a couple of years, and then they want to go back to where they came from. So that's a lot of what's going on in our department. Any more questions on that?
I appreciate it.
Sure. We'd like to replace the other side of the station's roof where it houses the trucks. Our command vehicle, after we got it, loaded it up, we found out that it's not heavy enough to hold everything we put in it. So that's what we're asking for there. And then, yeah, it's time to start thinking about replacing fire trucks. Our reserve fleet is 2009s. So we're on the way. It's just something to throw in there. A rough estimate on a new station is about $5 million. We're not for sure if that's with no land acquisition or anything like that. So that's there for you guys to think about. If we do go with station 3, it's going to cost us about $1.1 million to put a Quint fire apparatus in that. And then we're asking for $24,000 for air packs to put in our rescue. What we've done, because we have so many young firefighters, or we start them driving our 1-ton pickup, and then they moved to our big rescue truck. This looks like a big Bluebell ice cream truck. But that way they can get to the scene. And we can work on that deployment by getting those people to the scene. That truck currently does not carry air packs on it. When our grants came in, that didn't have a pump on it, so we didn't buy it. And we were actually trying to get rid of it, and I was like, we ought to keep that. So we're asking to put more air packs on that. I've talked with Marcella. We don't know, maybe we can run that through on a grant somewhere, but that's what that's for.
Quick question.
Yeah.
You put 5 million for new station. What about the annual running staffing of that new station? What would that cost?
That would be about that, well,
Because as I understood it, that million was the equipment needed to supply it. Is that right?
that was just a build station.
But then we'd have the staffing costs in addition to that.
Yeah, I
So
didn't put that in.
Okay.
So it's gonna be that. I have to go back with you on that.
It's going to be ugly.
It'll be a lot. Yeah,
Significant.
significant. Yeah, to run a fire station, you're gonna have 3 captains, 3 drivers, and 3 firefighters. So we have a total of 9 individuals there to operate that fire station. That would be a significant cost. I overlooked that.
Everyone always does.
I know,
Everyone always forgets the
yeah.
maintenance cost. And
Well, and part of that, hiring those 6 individuals, depending how the council feels about the next station, we can start that process of training, and they would be our drivers that we move in, or maybe our officers, depending how long that would take to build Station 3.
Yep.
So that would be kind of a pre-hire. Also adding those people to each shift, they give me a 4-man engine company. You get a whole lot more done with that 1 extra person, which is a 3-man engine company. It saves on time. Our guys had an incredible knockdown over at in the hospital. 57 minutes, we had it knocked down. And the flank about 25 foot above the roof. So it's 57 seconds, I'm sorry, 7 minutes, we were already out there. But we had a really good knockdown. Our training's kicking in. Our guys are really, our on-scene times, our knockdown times are really getting very quick now. So a lot of kudos to the training people have done. And keeping up on our ISO ratings, trying to keep all that work going, plus the hours of training they put in. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
All right, Danielle, anything else?
That is it for the work session.
Okay. I do know, at least for me, I'll let other council members chime in. You know, when we talk to survey and community folks, public safety is extremely high on the list. So I know that budgets are tough, and I wouldn't want to be in the city manager's chair on it, but you know, it's a critical priority for Warrensburg. So I do appreciate staff immensely taking the time. Again, it takes time and effort to put these things together and give us this much detail, and I certainly appreciate it. Any other council member comments? Okay, hearing none, then I take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
We don't normally do that. We don't need to.
That's
Okay.
not, we don't need to do a full motion, so we can just adjourn and reconvene in 10 minutes for our regular city council meeting.
All right, I'll see you guys again.
Thank you.
And
Is Jim okay?
yeah. They
Stop liking to miss a meeting.
It depends on how
Oh.
your government is structured.
Okay.
Okay. Can you hear me, Danielle?
We can you hear us?
Yep. Okay, it's a call to the meeting to order. I want to say, as I did in the other session for the general public and staff, I appreciate you letting me zoom in. I had a granddaughter that spent time with us this weekend and was feeling poorly yesterday and did test positive for COVID and strep. So I thought since we had the technology, I would respect folks and not get in public places till we figure out how to work those types of issues in our new world with COVID. So I appreciate the grace. Item number 2, roll call.
Brooks,
Here.
Kushner, Lund,
Here.
Bentley,
Here.
Holmberg.
Here. Okay, approval of city council minutes. We have a city council work session, June 14th. Look for approval.
Move to approve.
Brooks,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Holmberg.
Yes. And so then we actually had the city council or the formal city council minutes on June 14th. Look for approval.
Move to approve.
Brooks,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Holmberg.
Yes. And then adoption of agenda. Danielle, I think you have at least one item you want to change.
First, this evening, we respectfully request to remove item 7.2 from the agenda. This is for the SBR blowers.
Move to
Okay.
approve the amended agenda.
Brooks,
Say again, I'm sorry, I was looking at what we were.
we're taking off
We
item
amended
7,
the agenda.
Okay,
moving 7.2.
okay, yeah, all right.
Lund,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Holmberg.
Yes. Okay, proclamations. 5.1 Parks and Rec proclamation. So Danielle Fessler, I'm not going to ask you to come up front, I guess. So I'll just read this out. So whereas parks and recreation programs are an integral part of communities throughout this country, including Warrensburg, Missouri, and whereas our parks and recreation are vitally important to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in our communities, ensuring the health of all citizens, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of a community and region. And whereas parks and recreation programs build healthy, active communities that aid in the prevention of chronic disease, provide therapeutic recreation services for those who are mentally or physically disabled, and improve the mental and emotional health of all citizens. Whereas parks and recreation programs increase the community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and the crime reduction. And whereas parks and recreation areas are fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community, and whereas parks and natural recreation areas improve water quality, protect groundwater, prevent flooding, improve the quality of the air we breathe, provide vegetative buffers to development, and produce habitat for wildlife. And whereas our parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. And whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month, and whereas Warrensburg, Missouri recognizes the benefits derived from parks and recreation resources. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City of Warrensburg City Council that July is recognized as Park and Recreation Month in the City of Warrensburg, Missouri, dated this 28th day of June, 2021. Appreciate Parks and Rec staff immensely for what you do for the community. Any other comments from council? Okay. Item number 6, presentation. We've got 6-1 retail coach update presented by Caroline Harrelson.
Hey, Mayor. Thanks so much for letting us come. So everyone, I'm Caroline Harrelson. I'm with the Retail Coach. You guys, City of Warrensburg contracted with us in 2015, I believe, to recruit retail to the city. Since that time, we have been very successful just in the past couple of years. We have seen Starbucks, Firehouse Subs, Marshall's announced the MC Sports building, and then Fazoli's is coming soon as well, among others. And so we are super excited. Warrensburg is always a really fun city to work in. I need to go ahead and tell you a little disclaimer. I was telling Danielle and Barbara earlier. The Retail Coach has offices in Austin, Texas, and another office in Mississippi. I'm out of our Starkville, Mississippi office, and the Mississippi State University Bulldogs are playing in the College World Series in Omaha right now. So if I get a text message, I might look at it and just give a little fist pump and then carry on. But anyway, I'm super excited to be here. I flew into Kansas City this morning, and I've never seen so many Mississippi people on the same flight as me. So that was interesting. But anyway, it's been a great day for me just to drive around Warrensburg and really have some boots on the ground and see the sites that you guys have available, see what's really happening in the market. Because of COVID, we haven't been to the market in a while. I think it's probably been a year since our last visit, but we have had at least monthly calls with Barbara and Danielle. We miss talking to Harold. I feel like I got to know Harold intimately during COVID because you got to see, just like right now, you got to see everybody's house and their favorite t-shirt and everything like that on Zoom calls. So anyway, miss talking to him, but still enjoy working with you guys and with our contacts here. And let's see, in February, I believe, we renewed our contract with you guys for the next year to end in February 2022. We updated all of our reports on Warrensburg, are seeing very positive numbers, growth, and great things that we like to report to those retailers that speak to retailers. We're showing the numbers that speak to retailers. And all of those reports have come out. I'm happy to share those. Daniel and Barbara have those, and I'm happy to share those with any of the council members or mayor that would like to see those if those have not been shared. We have started traveling again for conferences. As you guys know, retail was shut down during COVID, and recruiting retail was certainly a hard industry to be in. Retailers were still interested, obviously, but they were shut down, and so they couldn't look at new sites until their current sites were back open. And then they all have brokers, corporate site selectors, a real estate team, you name it, that has to visit the market before they can actually approve a market and approve a site. And so those market visits didn't happen when travel was shut down. And so now that things are finally opening up, we feel very encouraged and positive about what we're seeing. A couple weeks ago, I think on like a Saturday, 2 or 3 weekends ago, I got more emails from retailers on that single Saturday than I've gotten in like the past year on any given weekday. So that just goes to show you how much that they are looking back at some of the markets that we've sent to them. And if, you know, we sent them Warrensburg 6 months ago, and now they're in a meeting, and, you know, Warrensburg is brought up, then they're calling me and saying, hey, you know, what do we have? Is that site still available? You sent me this 6 months ago. Is there still anything there? Or we were looking for 20,000 square feet. Now we're looking for 30,000 square feet. What can we do? So our team has met with Danielle and Barbara, and we have looked at the retailers that we brought in. We've looked at some of the retailers that have given us no's over the past couple of years, some of the retailers that have given us maybes. And then we've also heard from a lot of you guys input that y'all have shared. Councilman Bentley was just sharing one of his suggestions with me a few minutes ago, and it's actually someone that we've talked to recently. So we've kind of changed course and are focusing on the next stage of retail that we think would fit Warrensburg, and we're really excited about that. And we provide regular updates to our contact people on that. I had lunch at Buffalo Wild Wings today in Warrensburg, and a guy at Buffalo Wild Wings was making conversation and said, "What do you do?" And I told him, and he said, "Oh, you're with that group that's always real hush hush until something actually comes to town." And I said, "Yes, that is us. But let me tell y'all why. As you see with what is now going to be Fazoli's, you know, it was going to be Schlotzsky's, sorry, tongue twister, Schlotzsky's for so long. And then that fell through, and, you know, we probably announced it, y'all probably announced it, and circumstances outside of our control, it didn't happen. So that's kind of why we hate to announce something until everything is signed, sealed, delivered. But we're super excited about Fazoli's and about what's coming. So just wanted to come, get an opportunity to speak to y'all in person, answer any questions that y'all have. I'm gonna stick around, and if anyone wants to ask me questions personally or just put a bug in my ear for a certain retailer or a restaurant, I would love to see if we can get some scoop on that, or see if we can focus on them. One big part of what we do with the retail coach is we also represent our client communities at conferences. And during COVID, obviously, our conference representation was zero because all the conferences were shut down. And we are thrilled that conferences are finally happening again. Excuse me. In May, we attended our first in-person conference again since COVID. And that was really well attended by retailers, and we had positive success there. In September, we will be at a conference called Retail Live in Austin. I think that's going to be a really good conference for us to represent Warrensburg, because those are the retailers that will be attending that are kind of over this region. So I think that'll be very good. We've done a few virtual conferences, and to be honest, I'm convinced that the retailers' bosses make them sign up for the virtual conferences just to say that they're going, and then they don't actually even log in. So the virtual conferences haven't been as helpful, but we've done any that have been offered to us. But we will be attending the Retail Live in September, and then our big national conference, ICSC, International Council of Shopping Centers, which is the huge one that all the retailers go to, usually happens in May every year. Was canceled last year, postponed this year, and we'll be going to that in December of this year. So I'm really excited about that. That's usually where, in the past, Harold has met us at that conference and has kind of helped close some deals. And, you know, it's just so much easier to have those conversations face to face in front of the retailer, and then get some more information on when they're coming and what their actual plans are. One thing that we've been able to do, one pro I think that came out of COVID, was Zoom meetings, just like right now. And so one thing that we've been doing a lot more of lately is virtually touring markets with retailers. So we hope to keep that up over the next few months and even years. Just have a meeting with a retailer and say, hey, I know you can't get to Warrensburg for another 3 months until you've got, you know, 3 areas around Kansas City or whatever it may be to tour with that certain franchisee. But in the meantime, let's tour the market, and you let me know what you think about this site, because it's going to go fast. So that's kind of something that we've started doing more since COVID that I'm really pleased with, and that we've seen positive. So any questions, I'm happy to answer, and I'll also stick around if y'all just want to talk one-on-one.
I just had a couple, sorry.
Okay.
Do companies tend to not want to compete in small markets? So like, I know we just got the Hy-Vee, so like say a Price Chopper or something,
Right.
would they look to not want to?
Yes, they will definitely look and see if it's not going to be worth their time or money. You know, they want to come in and they want to do well. Now, there's some, one thing that we actually do a lot of, and we have the technology to do, is we can look and see if there's a Hy-Vee, what other retailers, even in the same grocery category or whatever category it may be, what other retailers typically go within 5 or 10 miles of that retailer. And so now that you have that, then we can focus on retailers that like to be in their market. They by no means have a monopoly on the market. And so we still definitely want to push it out to others and send it to others. So it really depends on the market and the size of the city. But all in all, I think there's still opportunity for another one to come.
And my other, you
Yeah.
partially answered my other question. Do retailers look at like a radius restriction, knowing that we have like Lee Summit that's 40 miles this way and
Yeah.
Sedalia that's 30 miles that way? Do they look and say, well, we don't want to put one?
Yeah,
in
they
the middle of
definitely
those
do.
two, or-
So one thing that we are able to do with our technology also, and I'm not sure how many of you guys have heard this spiel before. My cell phone is back there. I usually hold it up when I say this, but we have like, you know, kind of like that big brother scary technology where when you go home every night, your phone knows what your home location is, right? It's where you are from 9 p.m. or whatever it is to 6 a.m. That's, you know, not necessarily tracked to your address, but it's tracked to a zip code. And we can see who's shopping where and what zip code they're coming from and how regularly they're coming from. And so we can put into our system, and by we, I totally mean our technology director, because I have no clue how he does any of this, but he sends the reports and they're amazing. He puts in, and we can see weekly, bi-weekly, whatever, who's shopping at Aldi and where they're coming from. Or when you guys have the Marshalls open, who's shopping at Marshalls, how often they're coming and where they're coming from. And we can see if they're coming the most from, obviously, 10-mile radius, but we can see if they're coming from 15, 30, 45. And then we can base that off of those numbers. We can see what your trade area is, because it's not just Warrensburg, right? You know that so many other people are coming in and shopping, coming off, you know, just taking the exit and grabbing something, whatever it may be. So anyway, to answer your question, yes, the retailers will do the same thing. They're gonna look and see, say it's a TJ Maxx. They're gonna look and say, well, we've got a TJ Maxx 45 miles this way and 60 miles this way. And we see that Warrensburg frequents those. So we feel like we've got that area covered. Thanks so much. But we still want to give you a Marshalls, and Marshalls is the same brand as TJ Maxx, or is under the same parent company. And so a lot of times they'll do something like that. Maybe if this one doesn't have a Marshalls or this one doesn't, then they're not gonna do a TJ Maxx because they don't want to monopolize, you know, themselves. But they'll go ahead and give us another brand that would work if we stay on them enough and try to tell them that it's a market that would work. So yeah. Another problem that we run into, and this was a discount store that I spoke with recently that had some interest in the Warrensburg market. And I saw that email come through literally in the last 6 hours. So I haven't read it closely enough. I got off the plane and was a little bit foggy brained, but anyway, another thing that they look at is where their clearest or their nearest warehouses are. And so, you know, if they're too far from being able to get their transport here, then they're not going to be able to do it. Maybe they need to make one more, maybe they need to have one more destination or one more store open 60 miles away before they can go 120 miles from their warehouse, if that makes sense. So that's when they'll give us an answer of, well, we'd like to be there, but we need to open another store 60 miles closer before we can get to you guys. So then that puts us in the, okay, let's go back to them in 1 to 2 years kind of work, so to speak, if that helps.
Last question. Sorry.
Okay.
Population size. I don't do most, whenever you talk to retailers, do you base it on the residents of Warrensburg, or do you also include the college?
We definitely include the college, and we actually include further than the college. And I'm so sorry that I did not send Barb the most recent retail trade area. Do you happen to have the reports that we sent you guys in March that we pulled? I'm not sure if you could pull that up, but
I can pull up the ones off the website, yeah.
okay. Yeah, so we actually do not want to talk about the population of Warrensburg at all, and we don't want to talk about just the population of the college. We talk about the city, we talk about the college, and we look at the broader picture. So we look at how many people outside of Warrensburg also are shopping in the market regularly. And that's how we get our population numbers. And those are the numbers that we're actually sending to the retailers, because they don't need to know how many people live in Warrensburg city limits, right? Or how many people live here in the spring and fall. Yeah. They need to know how many people are shopping in the market regularly. And that's kind of the whole story that we like to tell. And those are the numbers that speak to the retailers. So we definitely look at all of the above, and we encourage our retailers to do the same. One thing that we talk about a lot in our meetings is, you know, some of the retailers that are on campus, maybe in the student union, we try to talk to those retailers and say, look, you know, you're doing great there. Consider open a freestanding store in the community. And so that's another thing that, you know, we try to do. So we look at it from all angles, but we definitely include the college. Yeah.
So about population, and when you calculate that number of the shoppers that are people who are visiting and
right.
Spending money in the community, can you talk about a little bit about the breakover points for different franchises and such? So for instance, every business has their criteria that they're looking for. Right. And I know there's some industry standards as far as, you know, tier 1 is major metropolitan area, DC, Chicago, New York,
Right.
tier, 374. Well, I won't name community, but.
Right, but they want to know, have to have a certain population size, or they need to have so many people within a 5 mile
Median
radius,
income.
or median income, so, yeah. All of those things are different things that we look at. I will say that one thing that we have seen is post-COVID, all of our retailers are throwing those plans out the window. I mean, if you think about your sit-down restaurants, for example, we'll start with that category. A year and a half ago, all of the sit-down restaurants, casual sit-down restaurants, whether it was Buffalo Wild Wings, which you guys already have, or Chipotle, which you guys already have, but just kind of categories, restaurants in those tiers, wanted at least an acre, or a space big enough to where they had a lot of parking, 30 tables, a lot of dine-in tables. Well, now they are going on smaller lots, trying to do, if they can, squeeze in 2 drive-throughs, maybe having dine-in, maybe not, definitely having space for a pickup window. And so, and they're going into smaller communities because now they don't have to worry about how many tables are going to be full, what % of the time. Now they've learned because of COVID that they can meet their numbers, they can meet their sales goals through the drive-through. And so a lot of those tiers have completely just thrown their plans out the window, which has been good for us because we've emailed retailers in the past or given them a call about, or even had meetings with them in conferences, and they said, oh, community XYZ is too small, thanks though. And then I get an email out of nowhere, they're replying to an email that I sent them 8 months ago saying, hey, I was searching my email and this may not have necessarily been Warrensburg, but I was searching my email and you contacted me about Warrensburg, Missouri, and that came up the other day. What do you know? What's available? Is there a site I can move on today? It's actually fitting in our growth strategies. And so that's one big thing that we're seeing. Target, on the other hand, Target's only going into major metropolitan areas or really, really large college towns. That's not changing. But a lot of the restaurants and even the different retailers are completely changing their growth strategies right now. And so that's kind of been interesting and fun to see what's coming out of it. And that's the fun thing I think that we're going to see as we go to these conferences and as the rest of the year unfolds, as everything's opening up more, is how these retailers are changing their growth plans. So, did you happen to find that?
I have it, I don't.
Okay, that's
but
fine.
we can send you, or I'll put it in my city manager's report, we'll get you out in the weekly update, the link to it. It is linked from our website, go to warrensburg-mo.com. It has or .gov, and search up in the top corner, retail trade data. It'll come up and it'll link to their website, retail360.us. And then you can see the Warrensburg has several reports from 2021 and the retail trade area map is on that.
And let me do this. I will go ahead and give y'all my cell phone number. And if you just text me your email address, I'm happy to go ahead and send you the reports also in an email. It's 662.
Carolyn, why don't you go ahead and send that to me?
Yep. Okay. Sorry.
And then I can distribute that to city council members.
Because this is online, so.
It's 555.
867.
I was trying to think of the lyrics. So me.
Perfect. Good motivation though.
Yeah. Anything else? All right, well, I will stick around. I might have my ESPN app on watching the baseball game, but thank y'all so much for working with us. We love working with Warrensburg, and thank y'all for letting me come talk to y'all tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, item number 7.1, first reading for school resource officer. An ordinance authorizing the city manager and city clerk to execute a memorandum of understanding with the Warrensburg R6 school district for the school resource officer program for the 2021 through 2022 school year, presented by Chief Lockhart.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, thank you for having me here tonight. For your consideration is the renewal of our SRO MOU. The only thing that's changed here is incorporating what you all approved as an amendment to the memorandum last fall when we had to do the traffic control around the middle school. And so that is now incorporated into this document. It is, I believe, second page, it's the 1, 2, 3, 4, it's the 5th paragraph down, where it says the district may request from time to time. That's the only thing that's changed this year. Marcella ran the budget numbers. We did not need to make any adjustments there. The school board has approved the contract, so we'd be asking for you to hear it this first time, and then we'll bring it back to you next meeting for approval. Any questions? Thank you.
Okay. So we amended the agenda. We'll skip 7.2. So item number 8, second reading of an ordinance authorizing purchase of a compressor. Second reading of ordinance authorizing the interim city manager and interim fire chief to purchase a WFD 21 compressor and cylinder management system from Conrad Fire Equipment in the amount of $7,889.47, presented by Doyle Oxley.
Since I wasn't here for the first presentation, Marcella did it for me. Thank goodness for her. Are there any questions you guys have concerning this apparatus?
Move to approve the ordinance.
This is for adoption or rejection. Brooks,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Holmberg.
Yes. Okay, item 8.2, second reading of an ordinance rezoning. So second reading of an ordinance rezoning land located north of Veterans Road and east of Larson Avenue from general business district to R1 single family resident district and R4 medium density multifamily residence district, presented by Barb Carroll.
Mayor and City Council, this is the second reading of an ordinance. You held a public hearing 2 weeks ago on this matter. This is brought forward by Baldridge LLC, Darren Baldwin and Mike Rich. It's to rezone one of the large blocks of general business that was originally done general business back when the project was first conceived in 2006. And this was prior to everything happening with the bypass was just in the first stages at that point. And so there's a little uncertainty about what it would look like around that and land use around that. Those have become more known as time has gone on. And so they have come forward with a request to rezone the land, a small part of it for single family residents and the remainder of it for the R4 medium density multifamily residence district. So since you're hearing, we've not had any additional public comments and staff would recommend approval.
Move to approve.
You got it.
I'll make a.
Okay. Brooks and or Bentley? I guess Brooks. Okay,
Brooks, he said.
okay. This is for adoption or rejection. Brooks,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Holmberg.
Yes. Okay, moving on to item number 9, other business. Is there any other business to be presented?
Oh, I'm supposed to fill that out.
Yeah, that's the next item, but yes, if you want to put your name on there.
Because no one was here that said anything.
You have-
Okay,
You actually need my address?
Nah, yes, for the record.
Yes.
okay. There's no other business. Moving on to item number 10, appearances to the council not listed on the agenda.
We have Mr. Lee Wyrick here to address city council.
Okay, Lee, come forward, state your name, please.
My name is Lee Warrick, and I'm here because the sewer department charges an additional fee for using any online bill pay. And they do not have any type of like automatic clearinghouse payment options, despite the fact that they are substantially cheaper. And I've not been given any clear reason for why they don't exist. And I'm here to ask that you guys add an ACH option and have it as a 0 fee or minimal fee based on the actual cost of ACH. Any questions about what ACH is or,
So wireless check, right?
yes,
Well,
and they're
Paperless check.
substantially cheaper than paper checks.
Yeah.
It's actually been calculated that paper checks cost $3 to process, even if there's no fee associated with them, and ACH costs 30 to 50 cents.
so I guess my question is there a statutory reason why we don't offer that as an option?
There is not a statutory reason why we do not offer that as an option. There is a statutory requirement that does not allow the city to absorb any fee that is associated with the convenience of paying online or electronically. What I would recommend at this time, Mayor and City Council, is if you allow staff to put together a presentation to kind of do a little bit of research into an automatic clearinghouse, and we can present that to you at a later meeting. We'll have Marcella in our finance department do that.
Can I ask that whenever we do that is presented, if you could just notify him that we're going to, that's why we needed your address. Thank you.
Any other appearances on the list?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Moving on then, miscellaneous matters from the mayor and or city council. On one thing is July 10th, I believe, it's the Saturday coffee with council. So if someone wants to take that next Saturday, I'm open to sharing or giving it up.
Actually, oh, sorry. Finish this, then I do actually have something to ask.
What was that? What date was that? Sorry.
July the 10th, which is a Saturday, I believe.
Yep.
I can do it.
Okay, anybody else?
I can't do this one, sorry. Normally I'm up for it.
All right, Taro, you've got it.
Perfect. When everybody rush in there. And then you might want to show up a little late, so.
It's a good thing.
Yeah.
No, when you had something?
Yeah. I guess this is directed at the fire and police. Are y'all taking any steps to, because I know at least the police department has a really strong social media presence to push for fireworks safety and remind people, don't blow your fingers off, don't put sparklers anywhere they shouldn't be, that kind of stuff.
Mailboxes.
Actually, Fire Prevention Officer Jeremy Van White is working on that right now, to push all that out.
It's coming up quick.
I understand, it's been a busy week.
We'll
So,
usually share their stuff.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else from anybody?
I just, real quick, I know I've been seeing more recently posts on Facebook, but then also talking to people in the community about the homeless situation in Warrensburg. Some of it complaining and some also talking about possible resources that could be provided to them. I didn't know if staff has been considering that, if there's some way we could reach out to other communities, see how they're handling the situation, and if we could come up with some kind of proactive plan, or I guess reactive now, since we have a large population, so.
Yeah, Chief Lockhart and I have been in contact with those community partners. And we can absolutely reach out and continue having that conversation.
So do we know if the majority of or maybe not even the majority, the percentage of the homeless population here are homegrown, or if they're, because I know there's a population that's migrant. They have a certain circuit, or they have areas they move, but others are, people who lost their jobs due to COVID and now they don't have a place to stay. Do we have any idea of what the mix of the ones that became homeless local or versus our transients or immigrated here?
I'm gonna be very cautious in answering this question since, as a city, this isn't a number that we particularly track ourselves. And, you know, we do anecdotally hear that we are starting to see an increase in, some of that migrant population or, folks that are here about our very, good and available resources that we have. And so they might be making their way here. Again, I want to be very careful about saying that or putting a number to that because that is an anecdotal conversation that is being had in the community. Again, what I think we should do, I think we should invite some of those community partners who do work with that population and have done a lot of work with them to come in and give a presentation to City Council. I think that would be very beneficial to educate ourselves on that. So as we do see comments on Facebook and as we are hearing things out in the community, we will also be more informed of that. So I'm happy to get that scheduled for you.
One of the things I would like to ask them when you're preparing for the presentation or inviting them is what's the national trend? So are we just seeing, you know, the same change that the country is seeing? You know, there's just more people on the streets all over, or is this a disproportionate thing where Warrensburg, for whatever reason, is drawing more than other communities?
Okay, any other topics? Okay, mayoral appointments. You'll see 4 folks that I visited with and talked to directors about. All these are reappointments to those various boards, and I'd like a motion to appoint.
Move to approve as presented.
Brooks,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Holmberg.
Yes. All right, item number 13, city manager report.
I would ask any of the department heads if you have anything to share with City Council before I jump into our presentation on the joint resolution with Parks and Recreation. Does anyone have anything they would like to share?
Marcy?
We were notified, the WCDB received the $70 marketing matching grant for 2022. And that is the grant that I referenced, came over for the study session. So now we will process and administrate over $200,000 in grant funds in 12-month period. We're really excited about that. That's being utilized for digital marketing.
Woohoo.
Thank you.
Yes, so we have our Freedom Fest 5K this weekend. It's normally on the 4th of July. 4th of July is Sunday, so we're having it on Saturday morning. It starts at 7:30, and we're having the national anthem sung at about 7:15, and a Boy Scout troop is going to raise the flag and the flag ceremony for us. We really need, if you want to volunteer, let me know. You need to be there around 7 to 7:15. We will have coffee.
Is it gonna be timed? Is it gonna be
It is
digitally
timed. We do
timed?
have an official timing system.
Perfect.
It's not too late to sign up if you want to run.
I'm still waiting.
You've been working.
What about meander? Can I meander the course?
There's no time.
I would like to talk a little bit about the joint Parks and Recreation Board and City Council resolution. Back in July of 2020, the City Council had passed a resolution indicating that they would be withdrawing from some of the support services that the City Council, through the general fund, provided to the Park Board and to the Parks and Recreation Department. As conversations continued and conversations were had, we decided to have another joint meeting of the City Council and Park Board in February of 2021. And at that time, we decided it was in the best interest of both the city and the Parks Department, as well as the residents and community members of Warrensburg, to to try to find a way or work towards a resolution, if you will, to come back together and to start rebuilding and repairing that relationship. So we came up with a smaller work group that consisted of 2 council members, that being Mayor Holmberg and Councilmember Bentley, as well as 2 park board members, being President Erica Collins and board member Dan Baldridge, and then Danielle Fessler and Danielle Doolin, representing city staff at those meetings. We had some really good conversations, and we do feel like the resolution that is before you is, while it is very similar to the previous resolution 2116, there are some specific areas that we wanted to address where we felt maybe had not been completely, maybe just needed a few more details and some more language behind it to make sure that we do not run into any of the issues or concerns that we had been experiencing previously, and which led to resolution 2185, where the city felt that they needed to withdraw any kind of support or funding for the Parks Department. Those 4 areas were, 1, being very intentional about the orientation and education for newly appointed park board members, as well as newly elected city council members. So we put a little more detail about what that orientation process is going to look like and what's going to be covered in that orientation process. 2 of those items that are specifically called out would be the fact that the park board, they are not elected, they are appointed, and they are appointed by the mayor, and they are ratified by the city council, and therefore it is their responsibility to make sure that they are communicating with city council and understanding what council's strategic plan and vision is for the Parks and Recreation Department. So there's that piece that is included in there, as well as a piece in there, because it has been brought up that because the park board is appointed by city council, there is no record or meeting that would be considered closed to any member of city council unless there was some other kind of conflict. So just wanted to make sure that that is also pointed out and very clear in this new resolution. Another point that we are working on is to improve communication between the park board and city council, as well as other members, staff members of all city departments. So we've intentionally called out where we would have 2 joint meetings of the park board and city council, being 1 in January and 1 in June. So as soon as we have this joint resolution passed, we are going to start looking for dates and talking with you all about dates about when we can schedule that joint meeting. Another point that we wanted to make was that we were setting clear expectations for the policies and procedures, as well as clear to what needed to be followed, as well as making them accessible and making sure that they are up to date, not only for the Parks Department, but for all city employees. And so 2 of the points that are pointed out in this resolution to ensure that is 1, making all of our policies and procedures available on the city's intranet, which that is a project we have been working on for about a year now. And then the other piece of that is also when we do update our financial policies, or we do update our personnel policy, that we have a way to track that the employees can acknowledge that they have had an opportunity to read and review. And there's never a reason for someone to say, I didn't know that that was updated, or I didn't know that that had changed. The last thing that would be very different from what we've had in the past, and probably the most important piece of this new resolution, is the administrative hearing process. So we felt like it was very important, that small working group felt like it was very important that there was something in place that if there were disagreements between department directors, if there was a policy that they did not feel was being followed, or that the direction of the vision and strategic plan that we are working towards is not necessarily being implemented, and we're having some disagreements there, that there would be an opportunity to resolve that conflict before we got to another point where we were looking at separating the city functions from the Parks and Recreation functions. So we have that administrative hearing process. Again, we always want directors to try to work through any kind of disagreements or conflicts amongst themselves, even before they get a city manager involved. But if, at the way this administrative hearing process is set up, is that either the Parks and Recreation Director or the city manager can request a meeting of this resolution team in writing to the mayor and park board president. The meeting must take place within 21 days. We felt like it was very important to put a time frame on there so that we don't have any of these things hanging out there. And then the resolution team, the park board president and mayor, and then they would select one other person from their respective boards, along with the parks director and the city manager, that they would work towards consensus and a resolution of whatever matter was causing concern or causing this disagreement. Again, if that small group cannot work towards a resolution, or if there is still disagreement, there would be a joint meeting of both boards. So we would have a joint meeting then with city council and with the park board. And then that would have to happen again within another 21 days. And then the final resolution of any conflict would be decided by a majority of city council. So ultimately recognizing and remembering that city council appoints the park board, and the park board is there to implement the vision and the strategic plan of what city council has asked them to do, and they are doing the work of city council. So that is why ultimately city council will have the final say on any decision that needs to be made. So with that, I will stand for any question, or finally, this resolution is being presented to you as a draft this evening because we know it is important for us to have these conversations and for an opportunity for you all to ask questions. The park department, park board has also had an opportunity to see this draft, and they will be considering it at their meeting this Wednesday at June 30th. And then we will, when they approve it at their June 30th meeting, then we will turn around and we will approve this joint resolution on July 12th at our first meeting in July. So again, very fitting that it will be Parks and Recreation Month. So this will just be another way that we will celebrate. So with that, I will finally stand for any questions. Danielle, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I'm grateful that we're able to get to this point, and that hopefully Parker will approve it, and then you guys will approve it in the next council meeting. Yeah, happy to answer any questions. We've got a really good working relationship through the resolution.
So, Danielle Fessler,
Yes,
I have
sir.
a question for you. Do you think that this resolution, if we had had more of the administrative hearing and other stuff, would have highlighted the issues that council felt that it had, and we could have been working on it? Because if it would do what?
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just need to be quiet and let you talk.
I think the process would have mitigated any issues that we had, and we wouldn't be at this point.
Okay. I think it's, and I wish I was there in person so that folks could, it's easier to talk. I think some of council's concerns, and this isn't just at Danielle Fessler, but, with Parks Board and Council, making sure we're following hiring practices so we don't have those liabilities. I know that Danielle Fessler has been very good working with me, that we're going to talk to Park Board members and how do we really get involved with what the community needs and growth there. So I give her credit for that. And I don't know, does council have any questions tonight, or, certainly we should talk about it through the next couple of weeks, but I'm happy with what we've done myself.
I just want to thank everybody that was involved in the process. I think we had pretty good dialogue, and I think we came up with something that could be sustained for a long period of time, rather than just a Band-Aid to fix a problem that has occurred. So.
Well, I think too that it's it's, you know, I've shared with folks that I'm one of the council members that has actually worked for a board, and it's incumbent upon city council to really drive in with the boards that we appoint, any of those boards or commissions, about what the scope is and expectations. And I think we've helped build some of that. Parks is very important, not just because of it's placemaking. It's how we attract businesses. It's quality of life, and you know, we need to have them healthy, but we also need to have them well run. So I still think there's work to be done, but I think this is a foundation we can build on. I really do. I believe it.
The one other thing I wanted to update city council on this evening is the raise grant application. So we have been working with HDR to try to really get that cost benefit analysis ratio to over 1.0. So right now we are at about a 0.92 or a 0.96. And I wanted to explain that a little bit more because I realized in my memo maybe I didn't. But really what that means is that if we can hit that 1.0 ratio for that cost benefit analysis, that will mean that for the every dollar of the $45 million that we spend on this improvement, that means that $1 of benefit will be realized. So that's why it's really important for us to hit that 1.0 and why we are really striving for that, because that will really make our application competitive. We've heard through the grapevine that projects do get awarded when they're in that 0.9 range, that anywhere from that 0.9 to that 1.0. But we also know that the reviewers will also do their own analysis, and there would be a chance that they might be more strict and they might knock it down. So that would maybe possibly take an application that came in at 0.95 and that could be knocked down to a 0.85. Versus if we have one that's a 1.0 or a little bit higher, then we would be able, if they rated it and they were more stricter, that we would still be in about that 9.9 range. The other thing that we've been working on is getting letters of support from our community stakeholders and community partners, as well as property owners along the McGuire corridor. I'm happy to report that we have received about 8 letters of support thus far. We've given everyone a deadline of July 1st, and I'll probably start reaching out to the folks who have expressed that they would write one and have it, just doing a little bit of follow-up in that area. I will share with you, we've heard from all of our representatives at the state level. We've heard from Senator Hoskins, and we've gotten a letter from Representative House as well. We've heard from Congresswoman Hartzler. Who we have not been able to get in touch with would be Senator Blunt or Senator Hawley. So I'm working with Tracy Brantner with JCEDC, and she's got some contacts that she has shared with me, and we will continue to try to see if we can get a response from those. HDR assured us that sometimes those senators will just go ahead and send their letter directly to the Secretary of Transportation. So not to get discouraged, but I would like to at least have confirmation that they've received my email and have done that. Can I just let me finish my thought real quick? Okay. And so the other thing that wanted to let you know, I've talked with 5 or 6 property owners along the McGuire corridor, and all of them are very supportive. Of course, they have questions. Of course, they are interested in what the full details look like and what the full scope of work is. And I have a couple meetings scheduled with them to go through the details, but overall very supportive and very much looking forward to this project. So, yes, Councilmember Brooks.
When you were reaching out to Holly and Scott, did you reach out to their local Missouri offices, or did you reach out to their DC office?
Sure. So I've reached out to their communications staff. So that's who I reached out to. Tracy has shared with me their military liaisons, and that's who she works with. So we might be able to get a little bit better response. So, but if you have a contact in either one of their offices, I would love it if you would share that with me. I'm also trying to be professional and not overeager. So. But it is important that we have their support and they show their support. The other one that we know that we are looking at is MoDOT. MoDOT, we will have our draft application to them by Wednesday for them to take a look at, because they have a committee that they're going to be reviewing other applications with as well, to see where they will submit their letters of support.
Okay, anything else, Danielle?
That's all I have this evening.
Okay, I have one final request. The staff presentations that we've gone through the 2 work sessions, where do those slides get placed? I do try to take notes, but do we keep those online or?
We will add those to the website. I will talk to Marcella and Mason and see where the best place to put those online, but that is a very good suggestion and we will make sure that we do that.
Thank you so much. I know you guys go to a lot of work on it and I know we try to pay attention, but it is a lot of data, so I don't want to miss stuff. All right, looks like we're at the great Marcella, the finance report.
So Marcella is on vacation this week, but we do have Rachel Zenfeld, who is also in the finance department, here to answer any questions you may have.
That's what I get for not being in the room. I can't tell who's really there.
That's all right. And she left apparently, so if you have any questions. I got my back to the room, so I can't see them either, Mayor.
I don't have any questions. If council has any questions, we can ask Danielle and get follow-up. No. Okay, with no questions, then we're down to item number 15, adjournment.
Move to adjourn. Oh,
We don't have to.
yeah, never mind.
All right. Well, thank you again very much for having grace to let me do this digital while I work out just what quarantine looks like. So everybody have a good evening.
Thank you, Mayor.
I'll get it, I promise.
Hey, that's